Hi, this is Thomas Erl, and welcome to another edition of the Real Digital Transformation podcast series. Today, I have with me Orakwe John, an AI strategist and digital transformation lead who has recently published an AI strategy guide for small and mid sized businesses. Welcome, Orakwe.
Thank you very much, Thomas. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, please tell us how this guide came to be,
Okay.
what motivated you to put it together, and then we'll get into some of the details.
Okay, so I believe that we're at a very important moment, in human history. And if you look at the last 9 months of developments in the AI space, you'll notice that there's been a lot of interesting developments. The first thing you notice is the rise of high quality, affordable, and really fast AI models. They're typically called large language models or foundation models. And examples of this include Stability AI's Stable Diffusion 1 and 2, and of course OpenAI's GPT-3, and more recently GPT 3.5, which powers the now world famous chat GPT. So these models, what you notice about them is that they are high quality, they are very affordable, but they're also able to produce content output, text, images, video, code, 3D models that are not copyrighted and are not plagiarized, right? So the cost, what was so noticed from the last 9 months of developments in the AI space is that the cost to generate, say, images from these models has dropped by about 100 times. Okay, and also you notice that the cost to generate output from these models for web and mobile platforms has dropped by about 10 times. So what we've seen is a Cambrian explosion of AI tools. So you have an AI tool for all solving all kinds of problems. So um, but the implication of all of this for businesses is that the way business is done has changed forever, so much so that PwC has even estimated by 2030 the value that AI will contribute to the global economy is about 15.7 trillion dollars. But in this year 2023, where we are, the people at Gartner have estimated that this is the year of hyper automation, where human plus AI collaboration is the new norm, right? And it's not really far fetched because if you look at how successful Chat GPT has been, it's used by a lot of people in different professions to do all kinds of amazing things. So it's in light of this new reality of human plus AI that I've published this guide, and the goal is to help as many businesses as possible learn how to not just use AI but to use AI strategically, so that they're not using it because it's trendy. They're using it because they have business problems that they can solve with this technology. So I just took 6 steps. So the first step being that they identify business problems or challenges that they can solve with AI, and then they go into assess their capabilities and the resources that they have before
Let me ask
making
you,
research and
Irakli,
exploring
about
AI
that
tools.
step. That first step,
Yeah,
before we get too far into the framework of the strategy, that first step,
yeah,
identify business opportunities using this new generation of more accessible and affordable AI models and tools. Could
yeah.
you give us one or two examples specifically for the target demographic that your strategy guide is for, which is not the big corporations, but the small and mid-sized businesses? How give us a scenario? How have you seen a small or mid-sized business
Yeah.
apply this new commoditized generation of AI products successfully? Like a scenario.
Okay. One tool that I know has really made a difference for the people I work with is a user story generator. So for agile teams, project managers and product managers, before now they would spend days, let's say 3 to 5 days, writing user stories for for a given project. But with a generative AI tool, user story AI or user story generator, they're able to in 30 minutes write out all the user stories for any given product that they're working on. Another example that I would talk about is Ellie. Ellie is an email assistant, which once you get an email, and this is something that can spread across an entire small and medium scale business. So when people get emails, Ellie is able to read the emails and compose the responses. So I mean, people can literally take out 90% of the time they would spend composing emails using some of these tools. Then another one that
Let
I
me
also,
ask you,
yeah,
Orakwe, sorry, let me ask you about that particular scenario. So
okay,
the AI can create a draft response of an
yes.
email we received for us. So if that email exchange already had a history, so if we had been exchanging emails with somebody 2 or 3 times as part of a ongoing conversation, does the AI then study that history? Does it study prior emails we had with that recipient in order to put together the most relevant and accurate draft to the next message? Is that how the AI learns from our past communication?
So there are different options here really. So there's Ellie. Ellie is not as advanced as some other options. So if you are using Superhuman.ai, Superhuman is another email provider. It's AI native. So I mean everything is built with AI from the ground up. So if it's Superhuman you're using for this sort of for business email correspondence, then surely it's able to go through every correspondence you had till date, right? So that's when you import an email, let's say from Google, from your Google workspace. So you import all your emails. It's able to read all of the correspondence so far, and then craft email responses, appropriate email responses or drafts which you can review before sending to whoever you need to send this email to. So yes, it depends on which option you're actually working with. There are email assistants that just do
Okay, now
basic
interesting.
drafts,
So
but then they're released.
let's talk about step 2 of your strategy guide, which I'm reading here as the need for a smaller mid-sized business to assess their current capabilities and resources. And is that next step a preparatory step for adopting AI? What is the purpose of assessing what we already have as part of bringing in new AI technology?
Okay, so assessing capabilities is very important because, say, if the team has, if let's say the business opportunity or problem that has been identified is something that cannot be solved by any existing AI tools. I mean, there are hundreds of them now, but there's that possibility that this problem we have cannot be solved, with um, any of the AI tools in the market. So assessing capabilities would mean that we'll check and see if we're even AI ready. That's if we need to build a custom AI model, right? Surely, if the problem we have cannot be solved with any of the existing tools, say if it's a contact center, for instance, yeah, a contact center will mean that we'll need to combine several models. Maybe we need Google text to speech, we need OpenAI's GPT 3.5, and maybe Hume AI that they have a model which is able to understand emotions in text. So that's something that is custom. Assessing our capabilities would mean, okay, we'll need to check if we have sufficient data, like customer contact center correspondence, which you can use to fine tune the existing models in the market. Because I mean, we'll have access to these models, but we need to fine tune them using our own customer data, right? So that's just checking to make sure that we have the right data, the right quality and quantity of data to fine tune existing models in the market, and of course to check if we have the financial resources to follow through the project from start to finish. That's what
Right.
that step means. Yes.
Because if we don't have the right data in house, then as
Yeah.
part of the step, we would have to perhaps acquire the data we need for whatever goals we have in mind for our AI systems, whatever
Sure.
intelligence we want them to produce. Perhaps we have to collect more data from social media or from market research or purchase more data from third party sources so that we have sufficient input in order to train our models correctly. Is that correct?
Ex- that's exactly what's happening. Yes, that's exactly what's
Okay.
happening.
Super. The next step in your guide is to research and explore AI technologies that are relevant to what you want to do. And you list here some categories of AI technologies that are particularly relevant to small and medium sized businesses. You list natural language processing,
Oh yes.
computer vision, complex analysis. I think that's really important for organizations that are not huge corporations, but that want to understand whether it's worthwhile or to justify bringing in AI technology? How will it enhance their business operations? How will it make them more competitive? So these three categories that you highlight, natural language processing, computer vision, and complex analysis, um, could you talk a bit more about each as you've seen it be relevant to small or medium-sized businesses in general?
Okay, so for natural language processing, so the email assistant I gave example of, the one I mentioned at the beginning. These are all NLP applications. So even the Chat GPT thing that it's everywhere. That's natural language processing at at its finest, right? So that's something that is clear for everyone to see. For machine vision is a lot more technical, and it's important to state. I mean, we're recording this on January 16th. So last week, YOLO, that's You Only Look Once, version 8. That's the model used to train computer vision models. The new model was released, and what that means for teams now is that to build machine vision solutions is a lot cheaper. I mean, and it's a lot faster. You can build a lot more models are a lot more accurate and a lot more efficient at doing the job. So if a business, a small and medium scale business, needed to build a solution, say a large supermarket chain wants to build a solution that allows people to check out using just their smartphone, it's really possible. So using the model I mentioned and a couple of other integrations, YOLO V8, they can build out a model, right? A model that customers can use to scan different products. Now that this is if this supermarket chain is not interested in maybe investing in an Amazon Go or some other really expensive enterprise machine vision application. So they can use YOLO V8, a model, to find and with their own data to build something that works for just for them. Then the third option, that's the complex analysis. So I've seen application, I've seen tools, right? Well, they may not really have to build the custom models, but there are tools that allow small and medium scale businesses to model to build their own models, and these are no code, low code tools. I mean, I can't really recall any of them now, but with their own data, they can perform complex analysis on these low code, no code options. And if you check resource 3 within the strategy guide, you would find a link that just points to some of these tools that people can use to build their own custom models and to perform complex analysis. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so the complex analysis is more to support decision making
Exactly.
in terms of providing data intelligence for decision makers to better help navigate and steer the business direction of the company, whereas the other two categories you identified seem to be more functional, seem to be features we can use to enhance our automation solutions, interact better with customers, be more responsive. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure, certainly. That's the summary explanation of these solutions. Yes.
Okay. The in your strategy guide, you highlight two products, two platforms um, that are under the Open AI framework. One is GPT, and the other is Whisper. Could you tell us a bit about each and how they compare?
Okay, so GPT, that's generative pre-trained transformer. So there's GPT 3 and there's GPT 3.5. So I mean, Chat GPT is based on GPT 3.5. So um, GPT 3.5, those are text models. Whisper is a speech to text to speech model. So for instance, the contact center, which I spoke about earlier, if we were to, let's say, work on a project for a contact center, we're trying to automate a contact center, we would use Whisper to convert speech to text. Then we would use GPT to perform operations. Let's say we use GPT 3 or 3.5 to now process the text, right, and get a response. Let's say we'll train the database that is able to answer the customer's question. So we take out the response from GPT 3, feed it back to a text to speech engine. So I'm not certain that Whisper is able to perform text to speech. I know for sure that it does speech to text, right? So if we're looking to do text to speech, we'd have to rely on Google's speech engine, right? But Whisper is a speech to text model. GPT-3, 3.5, they are text only models.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would those two tools fall under the natural language processing category, or would you use them for other types of AI capabilities?
So I mean they're all natural language processing, but GPT-3, GPT 3.5 is more natural language processing. Then Whisper, I would say, is natural language understanding. So there's another category for which Whisper fits more into. So it's natural language understanding. You speak English to the model, it's able to pick out the sound, and it's also able to understand Chinese and a couple of other foreign languages. Yeah. So there's natural language
Okay,
understanding and the natural language processing.
super.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the next step in your guide is to develop a roadmap. So that's part of most strategies for whatever type of technology you might be adopting or whatever type of transformation an organization may be undergoing. They need a roadmap to understand the direction they're going, the target state they're trying to achieve or build, and then all of the milestones along the way. So, specifically for custom AI deployments, what is distinct uh, in this type of roadmap? What are the, aside from the general things we look for in terms of scheduling and resources and budget and contingency, what are some of the distinct characteristics of an AI adoption roadmap, and perhaps also to make it even more distinct, what are some of the characteristics of a roadmap like that for small and mid-sized businesses?
Okay. So I mean AI projects. I mean they're very different from regular IT projects. So what I would say, I mean, I think it applies across board, both in a big business and for small and medium sized businesses. Is I mean, the executives or the decision makers have to understand that a lot of times models do not exactly like say we set out to achieve this in 9 months. There's every possibility that timelines extend beyond what we projected, and then of course the roadmap would also depend on if we have the right quality, let's say the right quality of data, right? If we have the right quality of data and we have the technical and business components within the business. So when I say business component, we need somebody within the business who is a decision maker that will champion and push this project from start to finish, right? And that's important because there will be delays, lots of delays, especially when you're building models. Then the technical component, there has to be the right mix of data scientists, DevOps engineers, and machine learning on operations personnel, and just the right mix so that the project moves from start to finish without too much friction. There will definitely be friction, but it's important that there's a business driver, that's someone within the business who champions this project from start to finish, and then the right mix of technical talent also has to be available. So there's another resource within the guide which explains to people how to assess the AI readiness of their business. So if they do not meet the requirements, if they're not AI ready, then there's every chance that the project fails. But if they are AI ready and they have the right combination of the business and the technical components, then
Mhm.
they are sure to achieve success. Yeah,
You mentioned one of the first things you said about the roadmap was that it could take longer
yeah,
than expected, the project itself. So for any IT project, I guess that's something that can happen. But I'm curious, for an AI technology adoption project,
okay.
uh, the probability that it'll take longer than expected, is it greater because it's harder to foresee all the steps involved with that project? For example, is it more difficult to set and stick to the initial schedule, because when we begin, we may not be familiar with the quality or the relevance of the input data, and our delays caused because halfway through we realize we need more data or different data, or we need to train the model differently, or perhaps we even need to reconsider if we're using the right algorithm. Are those the types of circumstances that cause delays? Is that why this type of project may be more subject to delays than others? And how common is that? For example,
So
if you're going to
yeah.
if you're advising, sorry,
Mhm.
Arakwe, if you're
Okay.
advising a medium-sized business to do this, uh, do you tell them, well, we can put together a preliminary schedule, but there's a 50-50 chance that we're actually going to be able to stick to it? Most likely it will go longer, it will take more time, it will take more money, or is it not that common?
So, if let's say we put together a plan, so all of the factors you mentioned, are you know drive the roadmap and how long it could take, from the quality of data to the choice of algorithm, to cleaning the data to feature engineering, and eventually training the model. And even after training the model, baseline modeling, so we're comparing different models to see which one gives us the best output, and eventually operationalizing the model so that it's delivering value. So because of all the, and again, one I mean, when a model is trained and we're trying to assess just how functional or how great it is, there's underfitting and overfitting, and then all the baseline modeling to make sure that this actually produces to the degree that is optimum. So this, because of all of these different considerations, I mean, unlike a regular IT project where you know that if you build one module and plug to another module, I mean, you have a straightforward project timeline which cannot deviate. But models can function. So you may test the model today, right? And it works great. And then maybe 2 weeks down the line, a hyperparameter may change, and then it's giving it totally different output. So it's both art and science training, the training of models, right? So it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of it's actually a delicate process. So which is why 50-50 estimation of, okay, we have an initial timeline, but then there's the possibility that because of all the different delicate considerations, hyperparameter tuning and what have you, um, the timeline may extend. So once the decision maker understands this within the business, right, then whenever we hit a snag and say we have to change the algorithm, that's after the model, what maybe when the model is about to be deployed, and we say, okay, based on the baseline model, we think this is a better way to actually realize this business outcome. So it's important that the business decision maker understands this, and so when timelines extend, they're
Okay.
not going to pull the plug on the project.
Right. And, especially for smaller businesses that may have limited budget to actually
Exactly.
accomplish this, having an understanding of what they're getting into when they follow a preliminary roadmap, and understanding some of the risks perhaps that are associated with this type of adoption project, that it might take longer, it might cost more, I think will help them be better prepared for the realities of the project, once they really get into it, especially if it's their first time doing it.
Sure.
So I think that there's a lot of wisdom there. So we have a couple more minutes. I just want to go over the last parts of the strategy guide, which are to implement and test, and then to monitor and optimize. So those types of steps, again, like with the roadmap, they're common for almost any type of IT project, technology adoption project, business automation development project. You always want to conclude by putting it in place, testing it, um, monitoring it to see how it performs, and optimizing it as possible. So when it comes to adopting an AI system to help either your decision making and or the business operations to help improve how you automate your business, how you interact with customers. Those steps, implement, test, monitor, and optimize, how are they different when it comes to AI driven solutions? Are there key things that we need to look for, plan for, or do that may not be that common in the average IT project?
Okay, so again, I would reference the first. I think I've referenced this a lot, but I'll reference the contact center automation, project which I talked about earlier. So, for instance, we have deployed say three models. We have OpenAI's GPT 3.5. We have Hume AI model. We have Google text to speech engine functioning as our contact center. So implementing would mean that say we deploy this into the field, and testing would mean that when it goes into contact with the customer, right? We evaluate just how, of course, testing is if it's a B2C, which is what you get with most, small and medium scale businesses. Yeah, if it's B2C, we the customer is important for helping us rate the platform, just like the chat GPT thing. So if you use chat GPT, you're asked to rate the response, how good it is, right? So it's important when we're testing that the customer is very involved, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're building this to improve, relationships with the customer, whether it's a contact center or maybe to help professionals within the business. At the end of the day, it's about the customer. So, but still relating to the contact center automation. So we build this and put it out there in the field. The customer would rate every transaction, every communication with the system, how good it is, or how efficient they think the system has been. And then after testing, whatever feedback we get from the customer or from the development team, right, they would assess the feedback and then use it to improve the system. So in this regard, it's very similar to everyday IT projects. So where it really differs is when you're developing or when you are preparing to develop with data cleaning and all of the other feature engineering that you do for the model. But when it comes to implementing and testing, so another way that it may differ is when you get feedback, the feedback may now decide on changes that you're going to make to your model, right? So if we say we get a feedback and we find that so for this same contact center possibility, we find that it doesn't do very well with, let's say, Hindi or Spanish language, then we might have to alter, we might have to change the model which controls that part of the contact center with something superior, right? And then just keep testing until we have well, not a perfect platform, but something that works for all of the customer segments that the business has to consider.
I guess because when you position AI tools or systems as part of your business automation, you have the ability to enable them to act autonomously and
Yeah, sure,
independently.
sure.
So, we using the intelligence that they collect, using how they continue, their own evolution, how they continue to evolve and improve. And so, when you're testing that, when you're monitoring that, when you're optimizing that, that sounds to me like a new type of characteristic for us to look out for that is not really part of traditional IT solutions where most of the logic and behavior is predefined. If we're putting a component of our solution out there that's going to have some level of independence in how it reacts to customers, the information it provides customers, how it expresses itself, and so on, then I would think we'd have to monitor that more carefully, um, optimize it more carefully, and especially before even all of that, test it more carefully to make sure it fulfills expectations and doesn't accidentally start doing or expressing things that we don't want it to.
Yeah, sure. That's an important addition. Yeah. So I mean, it's a system where like I mentioned, it's fully autonomous, right? Then it's important to always, check whatever, whatever results or whatever interaction it's having with the customer in the real world, right? So that it's not saying something or doing something against our own business interests. That's very correct. Yes.
Okay, super. Well, I really enjoyed going through this. I think this is needed. I think many strategy guides and approaches for roadmaps out there are geared more towards larger corporations. But as all this hits the mainstream, as all this becomes more commoditized and more common, and as new environments are being built from the ground up with AI components naturally already part of the landscape, I think that this type of understanding is really important for not just the IT community, but for the business community to gain, so that they're prepared and so that they're not outperformed by others that already have and are applying this knowledge. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that you put this together.
I mean, I enjoyed working on it. So, I mean, I hope it helps as many people out there as possible.
Super. So, Arakwe, thank you so much for your time. It's been a very insightful discussion, and look forward to maybe connecting with you again in the future.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.